Coach, they were just talking. I think I learned this morning in the production room as well. Connor, I heard what you said about that Arkansas-Texas thing, bringing your own. Arkansas hates Texas. I did not know that. I had no. That's a huge.
Okay.
That's a huge thing, I guess. I just learned that this morning. I'm going to look into that for the rest of the day. I had no idea that Arkansas hated it, but it feels like around the SEC, there's so many of these types of things.
Yeah, I think, sometimes you get these inferiority complexes. I always felt like when I was at Michigan State, we had that sort of hatred for Michigan because of that. They were supposed to be more elite than we were, and we were always trying to prove that we were just as good. So I think you're going to get that, in this Arkansas-Texas game. And, there's some of that throughout the league, because you got the schools that have the big names and, like Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. But then you got some others that wish they were.
Yeah, absolutely. And rivalries can potentially be a lot more hate from one side than the other, and then that can catch up to you. Obviously, that is something that can happen in college ball. A lot of games that could go either way and ruin some seasons. Let's talk about this one, though. We just had Kirby Smart on, and he obviously comes from your universe. Listening to him talk, it was like listening to you speak. You have a lot of respect for Kirby, obviously, always have, always will. What do you think about him as a coach and his program and what they're staring down right now? Very different season for him, it feels like.
Well, I think Kirby's done a fantastic job. He's one of the best coaches we ever had on our staff. I mean, he did a great job with our defense for many, many years. He's a good recruiter. He has got great relationship with the kids, and he's a really good teacher. So. And I think the job that he's done here at Georgia, now he took over a program here at Georgia that wasn't totally in the tank, but the way he's been able to elevate that program through really, really good recruiting. But I think one of the things that people don't really realize, that when you recruit really well in this day and age, sometimes it hurts you. In other words, we did at Alabama, he's done that at Georgia. So you recruit really well, you got these high-profile players who are good players, but their expectation is they want to play very quickly. So if they don't play very quickly, then they want to transfer. So maybe they're the second best guy, you got an inside linebacker. Now you got to play the third best guy because the second best guy is gone. And how many twos can you get out of the portal? Because most people in the portal want to go someplace where they can play. So that's kind of a
interesting.
That's kind of a, I don't know, a circumstance that I don't think many people really kind of grasp, that when you recruit well, it actually can hurt you a little bit down the road.
What is it called? Caviar problem. That sounds like champagne problems is what a lot of people will say, right? Because of being able to get that many recruits and have that deep of a roster. But I think what I've learned from you talking about how you recruited in the pitch that you gave from guys that played Alabama that I've known, it's like you were very upfront with people saying, hey, this is how this works. You're going to come in here, you're going to compete against the best in the country. You might not play for 3 years, but every single day you're going to be playing against the best. And if you want to make it to the NFL, this is the place to do it. Kirby has done that here. We watched Philadelphia Eagles last night. They're the Philadelphia Bulldogs.
Yeah,
I mean, they
got a bunch of them.
They got them all over the place. So it's like, I think that's a good selling point. Do you think Kirby has done a great job with that? And do you think that's one of the pieces of why Georgia has been able to keep and get so many recruits?
Yeah, I think it is, because I think that's very similar to what we always tried to sell Alabama was development. That when you play, you're going to play well, and that's what's going to create opportunity for you. So don't worry about playing as a freshman, because you may even play too early, and if you're not ready to play and be productive, that could actually hurt you.
Yep.
So let's focus on your development. How good can you be, and then when you play, you're ready to take advantage of your opportunity, and then you're going to get drafted. And just like right now, we have 61 players from Alabama in the league. Georgia's probably next. All right, but
61.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Right now?
Yeah, right now. So,
All time.
but that helps you get the next guy. That helps you get the next guy, because every one of these guys want to play in the NFL someday.
Yeah.
So that's a huge selling point in recruiting, and Georgia has done a phenomenal job of that. And probably in the last 3 years, they've had more guys drafted than even Alabama.
Okay, so I think it was $1 billion in contracts this offseason. Alabama players signed, and 61 right now is just. I bet you what, AJ, 95% of the programs in the country don't have 61 in the history.
No way.
Of their program to get to the NFL. I assume, legitimately. That's I would guess that.
61 current is just mind-blowing to think of. And Coach, when you has that always been a thing when you're recruiting, as promoting these NFL guys? I know it always was a big deal. Like, hey, I want to go there. I see these guys in the NFL from, say, me, an Ohio kid that went to Ohio State. But like 20, 25 years ago, was it as big a push? Like, hey, look, you come here, we are like a stepping stone to get you to the league?
pipeline.
Yeah, but I don't think we ever had that until we got to LSU. We never had that at Michigan State because we couldn't get all the high-profile guys to go to school there. So we had to sell, development that, you're going to play and we can do well and you got something to prove here. So we weren't getting the elite player. But at LSU we did, and it started there. And that's where we kind of learned that we can use this whole NFL dream that most young players have as a motivating factor for us in recruiting. So, and it worked out well.
Yeah, but you got to be able to actually develop and coach, So not everybody can say, hey, I'll get you to the NFL, but obviously they can't coach.
But when you develop a track record of doing it, then that is a huge selling point.
You got to be able to legitimize yourself. There's a scoreboard in 61 current.
But they get to the league and they make plays, Pat. That's the thing. These guys get to the league, and if they don't make plays and you don't hear from them, you're not getting recruits. Like you got guys like
all pros.
They're all pros making plays every single week on prime time. That's the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, we saw Devontae last night, obviously going bananas. Let's talk about Georgia now again. Let's do this because this is something I think every SEC fan and SEC person is going to talk about over the next few weeks as this college football playoff thing continues to go. Their losses are against top 5 schools who are still top 5. Not like at the time it was this and then they end up not being good. It's like this first 12-team playoff. I think you've been one of the first persons to say it. It's like a lot more people are potentially going to be upset because there's a lot more hope. Tomorrow is an elimination game for Georgia. And their losses would be what? Ole Miss, Alabama, and then Tennessee. Those are all top 10 teams. There's some teams that might get in that haven't even played a top 10 team or even been in the same state as a top 10 team. What are your thoughts on it? And how do you think Georgia does tomorrow against a very good Tennessee team?
Well, I think Georgia's beat up a little bit. They've had some injury guys, that haven't been able to play for them consistently on defense. But I tell you what, Tennessee is a good football team. They're running the ball more. But their defense, man, I don't think people talk about their defense that much. I mean, how many teams have not given up 19 points so far this season? Their defense is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think they've played, behind their defense a little bit, and that's why they're running the ball more, shrinking the game, not scoring as many points, not making as many explosive plays. I'm talking about Tennessee now.
Yep.
But Georgia has played them well. And I think when you play this team, how you prepare for them is really important. But on the big picture side of it, I just don't think that people are taking enough account into what is your strength of schedule? Who did you play? Who did you beat? Who did you lose to? This is the 5th top 20 team, that Georgia has played. Texas played 1, and they got beat by them, which was Georgia. All right, so, and, we could go through every team, but I think it's not just I'm undefeated or I lost 1 game. It's who did you lose to? Who did you play? Who did you beat? I like the way they do it in basketball. They got this RPI rating or whatever they call it, and you beat so many good teams, that means something.
Yeah.
Well, we need to do that in football and not just look at the record.
Okay, so this is the first year for the 12-team playoff, and obviously with the CFP rolling out, there's been a lot of emotion about, hey, even Reese Davis, I think, at the time said they're obviously putting emphasis on wins as opposed to who, where, how, why, and everything like that. Is that going to be something that's just going to be battled forever, you think? How do you sort that out, you think?
No, I think we'll gradually move in the right direction. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. But the other big question is how are they going to factor in these championship games?
Yep.
Like there's a potential of 8 teams that could be a 2-loss team in the SEC, for example. Now, there probably end up being 6 or something. But only 2 of them are going to play in the SEC championship game. So that means that 3 or 4 other teams could have sat home with 2 losses and not played, and then you get beat and you get eliminated in the SEC championship game, and somebody else comes in and plays, and they didn't do anything. So, I mean, a lot of these things have to be factored into it.
True.
There's
in terms
so
of who
much
gets in.
shit. There is so much shit that could possibly happen.
But here's the one good thing. I don't think you're going to have the situation that we had in the past where you had a 5th team that didn't get in. Like 2 years ago, we didn't get in as a 5th team. TCU got in instead of us.
Yeah.
Last year, Florida State didn't get in as a 5th team. They're undefeated. All right, so I don't think you're going to have that. I think they'll get the best 5 or 6 teams in. All right, but it's going to be hell to pay now for them other 6 teams to get in there, and who doesn't get in.
AP Tone has a question for you. Amen.
Yeah, Coach Kirby was kind of talking about, the voters, they don't know about the environments that we're playing in and stuff like that. And twice now on the road at Kentucky and at Ole Miss, their offense has to be kind, looked like shit. They're over under.
Jeez.
It has. I mean, they're over under. They're over under team
Yeah, what
total
is that about?
to score tomorrow is 29.5 points. Does coming home, like just and playing in front of your own fans, does that fix what your offense has been going through, especially against a Tennessee defense that you talked about has been really, really good?
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be the key to the game. How does Tennessee's front match up with Georgia's offensive line, who struggled against Ole Miss? Now, I don't think they've struggled all year, but they certainly struggled against a really good front at Ole Miss, and Tennessee's got a really good front. So that's going to be a key matchup in this game. But I do think that it is really, really hard to play on the road. In this league, Tennessee's a hard place to play. LSU's a hard place to play. A&M's a hard place to play. So noise does create a problem for the offense. So some teams are impacted by that. Some teams are not. But when you're a passing team and you can't keep the defense honest, and they can jump that snap count and pass rush and put a lot of pressure on your offensive tackles, that really is a problem. And it was a problem last week, for Georgia at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I had a chance to play alongside Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis, and at home, end of games, they're off the ball quicker than the tackles are because it's dead, and boom,
right.
Tackle can't hear the cadence and bang, it's over. I mean, those are your closers. And in the SEC, everybody has closers at defensive end. So I think that's why the environment is so crazy. But also, some of these places, if you're not ready, you could get like secondhand intoxication from the,
It's true.
Like down there, that Louisiana was wild. That was a wild place.
Oh, yeah, it's a wild place. Those people celebrate life. They're great people. They have fun. And, they like to have their party time before the game. There is no question about that.
I appreciated that they showed you respect. Did you feel that? Did you get a chance to take
Oh, yeah, the people treated me great there, and I appreciate that. Terry and I loved it there. He probably made a mistake going back to pro ball from there. But
No.
Only way we could get back to college was to go back to Alabama. And,
boom.
But that's a great rivalry. The LSU-Alabama is a great rivalry. But it's an odd thing that the home team does not have an advantage in that series.
Yeah, what's that all about?
I can't figure it out. When I was a coach at LSU and we beat Alabama, it was the first time in like 30 years that LSU beat Alabama in Baton Rouge, that LSU beat Alabama. And our record was 6-2 going there and playing.
Of course.
And it's 30-10-2 all time in the favor of the visiting team. And
What's
for
that
a
all
hard
about?
place to play in that's a hard environment to play in. But the fans, they all left the game. So, Malachi Moore shows me a picture because I always do tell the players when we play on the road, you got to make the fans sit on their hands so it won't be a hard place to play. And then when they leave, you defeated them. You defeated them. You just didn't win the game, you defeated them. And he shows me a picture of the stadium at the end of the LSU game.
Empty.
And it was empty. And, Dan Lanning did that at Michigan. But that's the mentality you have to have when you play on the road in these hard places to play. We're going to defeat the whole, not just the team, the whole place.
Whole state.
I don't know if anybody's going to defeat the state of Louisiana. I mean, that place. That live tiger, Coach, I mean, that thing was ready for the show. Governor Jeff Landry is not happy that tiger was the only one that showed up, he said. That was the only tiger that showed up that day. LSU can still win the SEC. I mean, everything is still wide open right now. It's bananas. Connor has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, on the subject of the home environments, what do you think about the teams that are getting buys in the college football playoff not getting that opportunity to have a home playoff game? Do you think there's a chance, going forward, especially when it goes to 14 teams, that maybe, the home games carry over to the second round, possibly even the third round? Because we've talked about it. It's almost as if they're punished and they don't get that opportunity to play a playoff game in front of their home teams.
Yeah, well, I think that we have the system that we have because it's the only way that we could get to a 12-team playoff. Some of these conferences weren't going to buy into this unless they got a guaranteed championship spot in the playoff, in the top four with a bye. And most people would look at the bye as, just like in the NFL, when you play well enough and have a good enough record that you get a bye, it helps you at that
bonus.
That part
it's
of
a rest.
the season. Yeah, it's a rest period. People heal up. It's been a long season. Fresh yourself emotionally because you got all these games in a row. So most people would look at that as a bonus. I personally think that it would have been much better if we gave the best 4 teams a bye and ranked them 1 through 4 rather than saying win a conference championship gets you a bye.
Yep.
All right, so that, you could have won the championship and still had a home game like you're talking about. Because I do think that's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a big add to have a big game at home if you're 5 through 8, I guess.
Yeah.
You get a home game.
Yep.
And a lot of people are talking about that out there, that, can we get to 8 so that we can have another home game? Because there's a lot of passion for college football, and people look forward to those games.
Well, it's not only that. I think for the good of college ball, and I know you're the greatest of all time, you've lived in college ball, but for people that maybe didn't follow the entire college football season or don't follow college football at all, they hear college football playoff, they're going to watch. And I think one of the things that makes college football special is
the environment.
Yes.
No doubt.
So it's going to be on showcase, I think, for the first time, really, because all these other big games have been neutral site games, bowl games, this whole thing. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that get introduced to, like, what college ball is. We need more of that, I think, because that's what separates from every other sport, even the soccer. So we talked about this. College football fans, greatest fans, I think, in the world for anything. Soccer players or soccer fans in Europe, people talk about, like the hooligans.
Right.
Their stadiums average like 35,000, 40,000. This is 92,746, 102,000, whatever it was last week. Like, these are the greatest fans and the most passionate fans in all of sport. Us showcasing that is a good thing. I think we should do more of that, I think.
Yeah, and I think somebody needs to decide that beside the coaches, because I'll be honest with you, when I was at Alabama, I wasn't for playing home and home, in the playoffs, because I didn't want to go to Wisconsin or Penn State or Ohio State or someplace in December or January and play. If I could have guaranteed that they could come to Alabama, I'd have been fine with that. Now, but when you look at it from 1,000 feet like I do now, and I'm not coaching a team and looking for an advantage, I think you're exactly right. There's so much passion, for football in all these places. To have an extra home game, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a showcase. It's a showcase of the pageantry. Ty has a question for you back in the Thunderdome.
Yeah, Coach, going back to the strength of schedule discussion, obviously I don't think you ever had this situation because your teams were always battle-tested in the SEC, but do you think for some of these teams who don't have that good strength of schedule, there's almost like a sense of imposter syndrome, when you're not playing anybody and then you get in the playoff and it's like, oh, okay, now we really have to go. Like, Manti Te'o just told a story on Good Morning Football the other day about when you guys played Notre Dame in the national championship, and they thought they were great, and they were the home team getting ready to come out for warm-ups, and he was in the tunnel, and they had to wait, and you guys came, right around them, and at that moment when you guys came out, he realized, like, he said he, looked back at his teammates and kind of just felt the life leave their bodies, and it was like, oh, shit, here we go. Like, this is a different animal. Like, do you think there's any sense of that with any of these teams who haven't really played anybody this year?
Well, I will only say that I think playing against really good competition helps to elevate your team to a better level. And I think everybody's going to play to the level of the competition. I don't think it should be that way. Everybody should be playing to their capabilities, but it's human nature. All right, so when you're not used to doing that and you're not playing against great competition, I don't think you're going to develop as a team like you could. And I think when that hits you in the face, it's going to be a problem. I don't think there's any question about that. So I do think playing a better schedule is going to be beneficial to the teams that get in the playoff who have played a tougher schedule.
Calloused. I talked to Kirby about that earlier. Like, I asked him if he feels like his team is calloused. He's like, yeah, I feel like we are calloused. But they're also injured, he said, which a tough schedule and tough environments and great opponents, that can also lead into it. But there is a chance some of these first-round games are,
absolute blowouts.
There's a chance that it's going to get ugly. It could.
But the one thing that you develop is your team develops confidence. There was a time when me as a coach, like when I was at Michigan State and we'd have to play Ohio State or Michigan or whatever, deep down inside, I got to be honest, I never thought we had a very good chance to win. All right, but when we beat teams at LSU and we beat teams and won the SEC championship or we got into playoffs, I always thought we could win, and the players always thought we could win because we'd beaten 4 or 5 other teams like that. There was one year we played 9 top 25 teams in one season.
Jeez.
I mean, we were counting the playoff teams and everybody that we played. So and we won most of those games. So when we went in the game, the players thought that they could win. They were confident because they'd played against that kind of competition and had success. And I think that's going to be important for some of these teams in the playoffs.
Hey, why do you think Coach Saban is so much about the strength of schedule? Do you hear what he had to do one year? Nine ranked teams. I couldn't even imagine. And then you see some team who's played nobody get in a spot every year. Like, okay, all right, yeah, that's real life. I think you were one of the ones who said about one of your teams, how come, all right, the sports books have come out and said that if we were to play any of these teams, we'd be 2 touchdown favorites, but we're not in and they are. Okay, make it make sense. We're going to run into that again?
No, absolutely. There's going to be a lot of that. And there's going to be some teams that don't get in that Vegas is going to put the line on the team that got in, and that team's going to be better than that.
Yeah, AJ.
It's inevitable.
Inevitable. And I'll tell you what, Ohio State's one of those teams too, AJ. It feels like you guys are up there in discussions to go on a damn run. Got a weekend ahead of you, though, next week with Indiana coming to town.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's not get too confident.
We've got Northwestern
there,
this week,
AJ.
Pat. We're worried about Northwestern at Wrigley Field. Yeah, at Wrigley. It's going to be a good one. But, Coach, last week I wanted to ask you, we had Brian Kelly on from LSU, and he said he was hosting 300 recruits on that weekend, a bunch of big-time guys. And then they end up, it's not a great game for them, obviously, and you lose. And he loses. What happened? Like, when you're hosting all those recruits, how nice is it to actually win those games, I would imagine, when you have all those guys? And what do you say if you do speak to anyone after the game when you lose, when you have 300-plus recruits?
But you know, that's tough to explain. It's really tough to explain. But I was even saying on the way over here how much easier it was to play on the road from my coaching load standpoint. So if you had 300 recruits in there, AJ, who talked to those guys while they were there? The coaches had to talk to them. The head coach had to talk to them. I mean, so you're spending so much time on Friday and Saturday recruiting, it takes away from your focus on the game. And then you're asking a player, hey, man, why don't you come over and say hi to this, recruit? So instead of him focused on the game, he's worried about recruiting. When you play on the road, you don't have any of that. Plus, I used to have to go to Nick at noon and speak to everybody when we had a home game.
What is that?
I mean, I hated that, to spend 12 to 1 on Friday before a big game, and you're speaking to these alums. I enjoyed doing it, don't get me wrong. But it took away from, and then you leave that and you got to go talk to some recruits. And I used to have trouble getting dressed in time to go out for warm-ups when we had big home games because I had so many recruits to talk to in my office, in the stadium, in the locker room. I was hustling to get dressed to be on time for warm-ups. So it can be a distraction. But if you're going to have a good team, you've got to do a good job of recruiting.
How come?
Like you've heard me say so many times, I never learned how to coach bad players to play good.
Yep.
Never learned that.
Got to coach the good ones to make them even better.
That's right, yeah, and that's what I like doing.
So when you're getting back into coaching, or is that what it sounds like? Sounds like you're really missing in all those days.
No, I love coming here and talking to you.
Nick at noon.
But
you know what? Sick. Nick at noon sounds fun.
AJ, he's an Ohio State Buckeye. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right. So you're worried about Northwestern this week?
Yeah.
When I coached at Ohio State, just to show you how the culture's changed, and we played them the week before we played Michigan, we never even practiced. I was a secondary coach, and I couldn't even sleep at night because Dennis Green was a coach at Northwestern, and they had all kind of formations and stuff, and I'm saying we're not going to be able to get lined up. We practiced for Michigan the whole week. Won the game 69-0, and you worried about the game. That's how the culture at Ohio State's changed.
Oh, man. Yeah. Hey.
AJ's lying, by the way. He's not worried about Northwestern.
What do you mean you didn't practice? You were practicing for Michigan.
Yeah, we practiced Michigan's plays. We didn't practice Northwestern's plays.
That's awesome.
We practiced all week.
Well,
AJ, I can't believe it, man.
So you're telling you were up. So you were up at night going, what are we going to prepare for this?
Yeah, I was worried about not being prepared for what Northwestern would be, very similar to what AJ is, and we won anyway.
God, 16, not just one.
Yeah, it was a dominating performance.
All right, let's talk about one of your former players. It's obviously been a storyline throughout the entire NFL season, Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
And we had a chance to talk to you after the Thursday night game where everything went, and you talked about how, you talked to him, he's in good spirits, and then it's going to be a medical decision, everything like that. Now he's back. Did you see him tackle? Did you see him tackle this guy this past weekend? Led with his head to tackle a guy.
No, I missed that.
No, well, good, because I think if you have genuine care and love for him, you would definitely get worried. We all were like this. He came out and gave an answer. He was like, "I'm playing football, man. Like, what do you want from me?"
Yeah.
You just knew Tua was a dog whenever you met him, and it's like, I think every team Look, here it is right here. I don't want to. He's number one, obviously, on the right side of the screen. He threw an interception. He goes down. He gets kneed in the side of the head. Okay, makes a tackle, great tackle, one tackle, stat and everything, and he has the game that he has. They win. Now they're potentially back in the playoffs. So it's like a big convo. But his answer was like, "I'm a football player. I don't know what you want. I threw a pick. I shouldn't throw a pick." Is the bigger conversation as opposed to the tackle. It's like every team on earth wishes that they have a guy like that.
Right.
And it feels like that's going to be Tua literally until he's done playing football.
Well, let me say this about Tua, and I had several conversations with him. Every time that he got hurt at Alabama, he had tightrope on his ankle, and then everybody knows about him hurting his hip. But every time he got hurt, there was no play to be made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, the play broke down. He's scrambling. When he breaks his hip, Ruggs falls down. There's not even anybody on that side of the field to throw it to. Just throw the ball away.
Yeah.
You don't have to put yourself in harm's way. But he is such a competitor, and I mean in a good way.
Yes.
I mean, and he's a team guy in a good way, that he's going to do whatever it takes to win. I don't think that he's ever going to think about, I'm protecting myself. He never has. I don't think he ever will. And you have to appreciate that, because that's what great competitors do. I mean, and that's not a bad thing. But we don't want to see the guy get hurt. So sometimes you wish that, maybe he would protect himself a little bit.
Some guys just can't flip the switch, and those are the ones that end up being,
the
greatest.
That's right.
Yeah, those are the ones. Speaking of the ones, that's you, brother. Hey, can we tell him, because he's got film room. He's hosting segs. He's hosting segs and filming segs.
They crush, too.
They crush, yeah. Like, you're doing a great job, man. You should know that. Hey, boys, I think he deserves one.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
Here we go, Coach.
This is my best tutor right here. He's teaching me.
No, you're real deal, dude. In the way you're breaking down football, easy to understand, but high level, it's like you have absolutely crushed it. And the amount of commitment you have towards it. Like today you're going to go film something, and then you have film, and then you setting things up. It's like you've been awesome to watch work. And you should be now, obviously you're the GOAT and you're a Hall of Fame, whatever Hall of Fame you want to go into, you can go into. But I would like to let you know, you should be proud of yourself.
I appreciate it. But, I think one of the things that's helped me in this quite a bit is, first of all, we have a great team of guys who are helpful. But the second thing is, in the 25 years or however many years I was a head coach, you speak to a lot of alumni groups and you explain football to them, and you kind of learn how to explain it in a better way. And, we had this thing when I went to LSU called the Bengal Bells. All right, there was like 600 women in an organization, Bengal Bells, okay?
Okay.
All right, so they say you have to go talk to this ladies group called the Bengals Bells, 600 of them. I said, oh, man, I've never talked to a ladies group before. I've talked to a lot of alumni groups, a lot of guys about football. So I go and I'm being very, very kind, very, very polite. And this is, they weren't very good. I think they were 3-8 the year before, not very good on defense. So when I get done, I said, does anybody want to ask any questions? So there's like this 70-year-old lady, sitting in the back of the room. She's about 5'2", gray hair. She gets up and she says, are we going to get up and play bump and run on any of these guys, or are we going to play that soft-ass coverage I've been watching? I said, damn, man, it's a women's group.
Let's go. Yeah, and it's only evolving even more. But you make me smarter. I think you make every fan smarter, and you're also so damn entertaining. And we learn a new saying every week, shit through a tin horn.